Look at this scene. Prince Vladimir of Kiev stood on the banks of the Dnieper River, baptizing his people into Christianity. This moment turned Kiev into a spiritual and political powerhouse. Back then, it was the heart of Kievan Rus, a sprawling state from the 9th to 13th centuries. Norse traders called Rus rode down rivers from the Baltic to the Black Sea, settling near Kiev. They mixed with Slavic, Baltic, and Finnic tribes, creating a vibrant culture. Kiev wasn't just a city, it was the mother of Rus cities, a title that still echoes today. This shared root ties Ukraine and Russia together, long before borders split them apart. The Kievan Rus wasn't small. The yellow area you see on the map is Kievan Rus Empire before. It stretched from modern Ukraine to Russia and Belarus, ruled by grand princes in Kiev. Traders sailed to Byzantium, warriors raided Persia, and the state thrived. But this golden age planted a seed. Both Ukraine and Russia would later claim this legacy as their own. Why does it matter? Because Kiev's past fuels Russia's sense of ownership and Ukraine's pride in its origins. A tug-of-war that's lasted centuries.
The Holodomor new people by around 20 countries.
1223, Mongol hooves thundered across the plains, smashing the Kievan Rus at the Battle of the Kalka River. The Rus princes lost badly, and the damage lingered. 1237, the Mongols returned, torching Kiev and conquering the region. Kiev's fall left a vacuum. In the east, Moscow rose under Mongol rule, slowly becoming the new center for the Rus people. 1371, the Grand Duchy of Moscow started flexing its muscles, shaking off Mongol control over time. Meanwhile, Ukraine's lands drifted west, swallowed by the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and later the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Two paths emerged. Moscow built a Russian identity, while Ukraine's heart stayed tied to Kiev's ruins. The split wasn't just geography, it was the start of rival stories. By the end of the 16th century, adventurers, fugitives from serfdom, former border town residents, Tatars and other nomadic groups from the steppes formed a unique social group called Cossacks. They became known for bravery, independence, and fighting skills. Some, known as town Cossacks, defended frontier towns for Lithuania and Poland. But most legendary were the independent Zaporozhian Cossacks, who lived beyond the rapids of the Dnieper River at their fortress called the Sich. Many peasants and townspeople joined them to escape serfdom and oppression, seeking freedom and practicing their Orthodox faith. 1648, Bohdan Khmelnytsky, a Cossack leader, rode into battle against Polish rule, sparking a massive uprising in Ukraine. These fierce warriors, born from Kiev's wild steppes, wanted freedom. They fought hard, but winning alone was tough. 1654, Khmelnytsky signed the Treaty of Pereyaslav with Tsar Alexis II, tying the Cossacks to Moscow. It wasn't a small deal. Ukraine's lands began shifting under Russian influence. The Cossacks were rugged and independent, living along the Dnieper. They'd resisted Polish lords, but now they leaned on Russia for strength. Moscow saw it as a reunion of Rus peoples, a step toward a bigger empire. 1520s, Vasily III had already unified Russian states, and this pact fit the plan. But for Ukraine, it was complicated. Freedom traded for protection left a question. Were they partners or subjects? That tension still simmers today. 1783. Catherine the Great stared at a map and decided Crimea was hers. Russian troops marched in, annexing the peninsula from the Ottoman Empire. The local Tatars didn't fight much, and the Ottomans signed it away. Crimea, with its Black Sea ports, became a jewel in Russia's crown. This move wasn't just about land. It pulled Ukraine south closer to Moscow's orbit. Crimea had been a Khanate, a Muslim stronghold under Ottoman rule. Now it was Russian, and Ukraine felt the ripple. 19th century, a Ukrainian identity bubbled up, tied to Cossack roots, but Russia called them Little Russians, part of one family. 1804, Tsar Alexander I banned Ukrainian language in schools, fearing separatism. 1876, the ban grew, blocking books and plays. Russia wanted unity, But Ukraine's spirit didn't bend easily. Crimea's shift locked in Russia's regional power. Ukraine's edge became Moscow's edge. 1853. Cannons roared along the Black Sea as the Crimean War erupted. Russia faced off against the Ottomans, France, and Britain, losing by 1856. The Treaty of Paris humiliated Moscow, banning its navy from the Black Sea. The loss exposed Russia's outdated military and economy, pushing Tsar Alexander II to launch major reforms like freeing the serfs in 1861 and modernizing the army with new weapons and railroads. Meanwhile, Ukraine, divided between the Russian and Austro-Hungarian empires, remained restless. Most Ukrainians lived under Russian control in places like Kiev and Kharkiv, enduring poverty and cultural suppression with their language and identity restricted. But in the West, the Kingdom of Galicia and Lodomeria, centered around Lviv under Austro-Hungarian rule, gave Ukrainians more freedom to publish books and nurture their culture, sparking early dreams of a national identity. This wasn't a unified Ukraine. Galicia was just one piece of a divided land, but it became a cultural heart for Ukrainians. The war showed the world, and Ukrainians, that Russia could be challenged. November 1917, October Revolution swept Russia Empire. In western Ukraine, after the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed, Ukrainians grabbed a fleeting chance at freedom. It didn't last. 1922. The Soviet Union was born, with Ukraine and Russia as founding members. Ukraine's fertile plains earned it the breadbasket title, feeding the USSR. 1932. Stalin turned that bounty into a weapon. The Holodomor famine killed up to 4 million Ukrainians as crops were seized and people starved. It wasn't an accident, it was genocide. Russia's dominance grew brutal, and Ukraine paid the price. 1941. Nazi tanks rolled into Ukraine, capturing it by November. 1.5 million Jews died under German rule, and millions more suffered. 1943. The Soviets clawed back Kiev after Stalin, pushing Nazis out by 1944. Ukraine lost 5 to 7 million lives, a staggering toll. War scarred both nations, but Ukraine bore the brunt, its land a battlefield, its people caught between giants. 1954, Nikita Khrushchev handed Crimea to Soviet Ukraine. It seems simple, both were USSR states, so why not? But this gift had strings. Ukraine's role grew, yet Moscow's shadow loomed. 1946 to 47. Another famine killed 1 million more Ukrainians. Proving recovery was slow, Russia rebuilt its might, while Ukraine rebuilt its ruins. Crimea's transfer looked minor then, but it's a flashpoint now. April 26, 1986. Reactor 4 at Chernobyl exploded, spewing radiation across Ukraine. The blast killed dozens instantly, poisoned thousands over time, and left a 2,600 square kilometer dead zone. It wasn't just a disaster, it shook the USSR to its core. Gorbachev called it a turning point, exposing Soviet flaws. People lost faith, and Ukraine felt the fallout hardest. 1991. The Soviet Union collapsed. Ukraine voted for independence. 92.3% of 32 million said yes. Leonid Kravchuk became its first president. Russia, under Boris Yeltsin, stumbled into chaos. Ukraine inherited 1,700 nuclear warheads, the world's third largest arsenal. 1994. The Budapest Memorandum saw Ukraine give them up for security promises from Russia, the US, and UK. Freedom came, but trust was fragile. Chernobyl's scars and Soviet ghosts lingered. Ukraine wanted out. Russia wanted control. 2004. Crowds flooded Kiev's Maidan Nezalezhnosti during the Orange Revolution. Viktor Yanukovych claimed victory in a rigged presidential election, but protests and evidence of fraud forced a new runoff. Viktor Yushchenko, pro-West, won in December 2004, taking power. Russia eyed the shift with unease. His presidency, however, faltered by 2010, crippled by infighting with ally Yulia Tymoshenko, economic woes, unchecked corruption, and fading public trust. 2014, Yanukovych, now president after a 2010 comeback, rejected an EU association agreement, bowing to Russian pressure. Furious Ukrainians filled Maidan again, igniting the Maidan Revolution. 130 died, including 18 police, and Yanukovych fled to Russia. Petro Poroshenko stepped in, leaning toward NATO. 2014, Russia struck back, annexing Crimea. Its Black Sea ports and Soviet nostalgia drove the move.
Azovstal industrial zone. With them are civilians.
Donbas erupted in war, with 14,000 deaths by 2022. Putin called Ukraine's drift west a betrayal. NATO's 1990 promise not to expand east felt broken. Ukraine saw it as survival. Revolutions showed its will, but Russia's grip tightened. Crimea flipped again. Ukraine's loss, Russia's gain.